The Philippine Navy is entering a decisive phase in its long-term modernization effort. Inside the country's naval shipyard, a quiet but historic project is taking shape. One that reflects a shift not only in capability, but in mindset. Engineers, naval architects, and shipbuilders are now working on the design and development of a new landing craft vessel, built by Filipinos, for Filipino operational requirements. This project is not simply about adding another ship to the fleet. It represents a deeper transformation in how the Philippines views national defense. For decades, the country relied heavily on foreign partners to supply its major naval platforms. Today, that reliance is slowly giving way to a renewed focus on self-reliance, domestic capability, and long-term sustainability. At the center of this effort is the Philippine Navy's Sealift Amphibious Force, the unit responsible for moving troops, vehicles, equipment, and relief supplies across one of the world's most complex maritime environments. As the Navy looks toward the future, the development of a locally designed landing craft marks a critical step in strengthening this force and ensuring it remains effective in both military and humanitarian roles. The Philippines is an archipelago of more than 7,600 islands. Geography alone makes sealift capability not just important but essential. Unlike continental nations that can rely heavily on land-based logistics, the armed forces of the Philippines must depend on ships to move personnel and supplies between islands, whether in times of conflict or peace. This responsibility falls largely on the Philippine Navy's Sealift Amphibious Force. These vessels serve as the logistical backbone of the Navy, enabling amphibious operations, troop transport, equipment movement, and sustained support for units deployed far from major bases. In military scenarios, sealift ships allow the rapid deployment of ground forces, armored vehicles, and engineering equipment. They enable amphibious landings, reinforce isolated units, and ensure continuity of operations across the archipelago. Without reliable sealift platforms, operational reach is limited, and response times increase dramatically. In peacetime, their importance is just as pronounced. The Philippines is one of the most disaster-prone countries in the world, facing frequent typhoons, floods, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and landslides. When roads are destroyed and airfields become unusable, naval sealift vessels often become the only viable means of delivering aid, evacuating civilians, and restoring access to affected communities. Because of this dual military and humanitarian role, the Navy requires ships that are robust, flexible, and readily available. However, maintaining such a fleet has long been a challenge. For many years, the Philippine Navy relied on older landing ships and support vessels acquired through foreign military sales, donations, and surplus transfers from allied nations. Among these were landing ship tanks that had already seen decades of service before being transferred to the Philippines. These platforms provided valuable capability at a time when options were limited. They allowed the Navy to conduct amphibious training, transport heavy equipment, and support disaster response operations. But as years passed, the limitations of these ships became increasingly apparent. Aging hulls require more maintenance. Spare parts become harder to source. Systems designed for older doctrines struggle to meet modern operational demands. Crew efficiency suffers and availability decreases. While these ships served honorably, they were never intended to be a permanent solution. Recognizing this, the Philippine Navy began pursuing more modern sealift platforms as part of its broader modernization program. One of the most significant developments was the acquisition of the Tarlac-class landing platform docks, which marked a substantial leap in capability. The arrival of the Tarlac-class ships represented a major improvement in the Navy's amphibious and sealift capacity. These large vessels significantly expanded the ability to transport troops, vehicles, and relief supplies, while also supporting helicopter operations and command and control functions. However, even with these modern ships in service, gaps remain. Large landing platform docks are highly capable, but they are also resource-intensive. Not every mission requires a vessel of that size. The Navy still needs smaller, more versatile landing craft that can operate closer to shore, access shallow areas, and support a wide range of tasks. Equally important is the issue of sustainability. Imported ships, regardless of quality, often tie a Navy to foreign supply chains for maintenance, upgrades, and future replacements. Over time, this dependence can limit operational readiness and strategic flexibility. This realization has driven the Philippine Navy and the Department of National Defense to rethink how future platforms are acquired, not just where they come from, but how they are designed and built. The new landing craft vessel currently under development represents a turning point. Unlike previous acquisitions, this ship is being designed domestically, within the Philippine naval shipyard system. Filipino engineers and designers are leading the effort, drawing on operational experience, local conditions, and evolving mission requirements. While specific technical details have yet to be fully disclosed, the intent behind the design is clear. The vessel is meant to address the real-world needs of the Philippine Navy, rather than adapting a foreign design that may not fully align with local realities. Key considerations include the ability to transport troops, vehicles, and cargo efficiently, ease of loading and unloading, and adaptability for different mission profiles. The design also takes into account the unique maritime environment of the Philippines, its shallow coastal areas, frequent rough seas, and dispersed island geography. Just as important is the emphasis on multi-role capability. This landing craft is envisioned not only as a military asset, but also as a critical tool for humanitarian assistance and disaster response. That dual-use approach reflects the reality of how the Philippine Navy is most often employed. What makes this project especially significant is that it goes beyond the vessel itself. Designing and building a landing craft locally requires the development of skills, processes, and institutional knowledge that did not previously exist at this level. Naval architecture, systems integration, project management, and quality assurance all play a role. Each stage of the process strengthens the domestic shipbuilding ecosystem and lays the groundwork for future projects. This effort aligns closely with the government's broader push for a self-reliant defense posture, a policy aimed at reducing dependence on foreign suppliers while building indigenous capability across the defense sector. Rather than viewing defense procurement as a series of isolated purchases, the self-reliant approach treats each project as an opportunity to develop long-term national capacity. The new landing craft is one of the clearest examples of this philosophy in action. As the design phase progresses, the importance of this project becomes increasingly clear. It represents a shift from being primarily a consumer of defense equipment to becoming a contributor to its own security. For the Philippine Navy, this means greater control over its future fleet. For the defense industry, it means new opportunities for growth, employment, and technological advancement. And for the country as a whole, it signals a commitment to taking responsibility for its own defense needs. The development of a locally designed landing craft by the Philippine Navy is not happening in isolation. It is part of a broader national strategy, one that aims to transform how the country equips, sustains, and evolves its armed forces. At the center of this strategy is the Self-Reliant Defense Posture program, a policy framework designed to reduce long-standing dependence on foreign defense suppliers and build a sustainable domestic defense industry. For decades, the Philippines faced a difficult reality: limited budgets, competing national priorities, and a lack of domestic industrial capacity meant that most major defense platforms had to be sourced from abroad. Ships, aircraft, weapons, and even spare parts often came from foreign governments or overseas manufacturers. While these arrangements helped maintain basic capabilities, they also created structural vulnerabilities. Every imported platform came with long-term obligations, foreign maintenance schedules, overseas training pipelines, and supply chains that could be disrupted by political shifts or global crises. Over time, these dependencies constrained operational flexibility and slowed modernization efforts. The Self-Reliant Defense Posture program was created to address this challenge head-on. The Self-Reliant Defense Posture, often referred to as SRDP, is more than a policy slogan. It is a structured approach to defense development that seeks to align military modernization with national industrial growth. At its core, SRDP recognizes a simple truth: a country cannot claim full defense readiness if it cannot sustain its own forces. True security requires not only weapons and platforms, but also the ability to maintain, repair, upgrade, and eventually replace them without excessive external dependence. The program outlines three broad objectives. First, it seeks to address immediate operational needs through local production, assembly, and upgrades where possible. This includes maintenance and refurbishment of existing platforms, as well as limited local manufacturing of components and systems. Second, it aims to build medium-term capability to design and produce major defense platforms. Ships, armored vehicles, and selected weapon systems fall into this category. This phase requires investment in technical expertise, infrastructure, and institutional experience. Third, and most ambitious, is the long-term goal of establishing a sustainable and competitive defense industry, one that can support the armed forces of the Philippines over decades, adapt to changing threats, and contribute to national economic development. The locally designed landing craft fits squarely within the second objective and serves as a bridge toward the third. Among all major defense platforms, naval vessels present a unique opportunity for domestic development. Shipbuilding is inherently modular and scalable. It allows for gradual learning, incremental improvement, and adaptation based on operational feedback. The Philippines already possesses a civilian shipbuilding sector, particularly in commercial and auxiliary vessels. While military shipbuilding introduces additional complexity, such as survivability standards, specialized systems, and operational integration, it builds upon existing industrial foundations. By focusing on landing craft and support vessels, the Navy can develop core competencies without immediately tackling the most complex combatants. These ships emphasize structural design, propulsion, cargo handling, and mission flexibility, areas where domestic capability can realistically grow. Moreover, landing craft are central to the Navy's most frequent missions. Unlike high-end warships that may see limited operational use, Sealift vessels are constantly employed. This ensures that lessons learned from operations can quickly feed back into design improvements. One of the most significant advantages of local design is relevance. Foreign-built ships are often optimized for the operating environments and doctrines of their original navies. When transferred or sold, they must be adapted, sometimes imperfectly, to new conditions. A landing craft designed in the Philippines can be tailored from the outset to local realities. These include shallow coastal waters, undeveloped port infrastructure, and frequent operations in austere environments. The ability to beach safely, unload quickly, and operate with minimal external support is critical. Weather is another major factor. Philippine waters are regularly affected by strong monsoon systems and typhoons. Designing vessels with these conditions in mind improves safety, survivability, and mission continuity. Mission profiles also differ. Philippine Sealift ships must transition seamlessly between military transport and disaster response. A locally designed vessel can incorporate features that support both roles without compromise. Flexible deck layouts, modular cargo spaces, and simplified maintenance requirements all contribute to a ship that is more useful, more available, and more cost-effective over its service life. The Sealift Amphibious Force is often described as the backbone of the Philippine Navy, and with good reason. While combatants protect maritime interests, it is sealift vessels that move the force, sustain it, and enable it to operate across the archipelago. In a conflict scenario, sealift ships allow rapid reinforcement of key areas, movement of engineering units, and resupply of forward-deployed forces. They provide the physical link between bases, islands, and operational zones. In non-combat scenarios, their role is even more visible. After typhoons or earthquakes, sealift vessels are among the first assets deployed. They carry food, water, medical supplies, and rescue equipment to areas cut off by damaged infrastructure. They also evacuate civilians, transport relief personnel, and serve as temporary command platforms when local facilities are destroyed. A locally built landing craft enhances this force by increasing availability and reducing downtime. When maintenance and repairs can be conducted domestically, ships spend more time at sea and less time waiting for parts or technical assistance. Over time, a fleet of locally supported vessels improves readiness across the board. Beyond operational benefits, domestic shipbuilding has broader economic implications. Defense projects generate skilled employment, stimulate supporting industries, and encourage technology transfer. Engineers, welders, electricians, systems technicians, and project managers all gain experience that can be applied to future programs. Universities and training institutions benefit from closer ties to real-world defense projects. Local suppliers emerge to provide materials, components, and services. Even when certain systems must still be imported, integration and support can increasingly be handled domestically. This creates a virtuous cycle. Each successful project builds confidence, attracts further investment, and expands national capability. The landing craft project may not be the largest or most complex naval program, but its impact on human capital and institutional knowledge is significant. It is important to recognize that self-reliance does not mean isolation. No modern defense industry operates entirely independently. Strategic partnerships, technology sharing, and selective imports will remain necessary. The goal of SRDP is not to eliminate foreign cooperation, but to engage from a position of strength. By developing domestic expertise, the Philippines becomes a more informed buyer, a more capable partner, and a more resilient force. There are also challenges. Developing new designs involves risk. Cost control, quality assurance, and schedule discipline must be carefully managed. Early projects may face delays or require revisions. These challenges are not failures, they are part of the learning process. What matters is institutional continuity and long-term commitment. The landing craft project represents an opportunity to learn, adapt, and improve before moving on to more ambitious platforms. As the Philippine Navy continues to modernize, the importance of sustainable capability becomes increasingly clear. Ships acquired today must remain operational for decades. The decisions made now will shape readiness well into the future. By investing in local design and construction, the Navy is making a strategic choice. It is choosing resilience over convenience, learning over dependency, and long-term capability over short-term fixes. The new landing craft is not just a response to current needs, it is an investment in the future of Philippine maritime defense. The locally designed landing craft being developed by the Philippine Navy's shipyard is often described as a milestone, and rightly so. But milestones only matter if they lead somewhere. The real question facing Philippine defense planners today is not whether the country can design and build a ship, but whether it can turn this achievement into a lasting tradition of domestic naval innovation. For the Philippines, this challenge is both strategic and cultural. It requires long-term vision, consistent policy support, and the discipline to treat defense modernization as a continuous process rather than a series of isolated projects. The landing craft project provides a clear opportunity to do just that. At its core, self-reliant defense is about national sovereignty. A country that cannot equip and sustain its own armed forces is vulnerable not only to external threats, but also to uncertainty beyond its control. Global supply chains can be disrupted. Political relationships can shift. Export restrictions can change overnight. When a navy depends heavily on foreign suppliers, these risks translate directly into operational uncertainty. Spare parts may be delayed, upgrades may be postponed. Training pipelines may be constrained. Over time, even the most advanced platform can lose effectiveness if it cannot be properly supported. By contrast, a domestically supported fleet offers greater predictability. Maintenance schedules can be aligned with operational needs. Modifications can be implemented faster. Lessons learned from real-world missions can be incorporated directly into future designs. The locally developed landing craft represents a step toward this kind of strategic independence. It shows that the Philippines is beginning to close the gap between acquisition and sustainment. One of the strongest arguments for local ship design is mission relevance. No foreign navy operates under the exact same conditions as the Philippine Navy. No other country combines the same geography, disaster exposure, and operational priorities. The Philippines must move forces across long distances of open water, operate in shallow coastal areas, and support isolated communities with limited infrastructure. It must respond rapidly to humanitarian crises while maintaining readiness for security operations. A locally designed landing craft can be optimized for these realities. Ramp configurations, deck strength, cargo handling systems, and crew accommodations can all be designed with Philippine missions in mind. Even small design choices matter. Faster loading and unloading reduces time in exposed coastal areas. Simplified systems ease training and maintenance. Modular spaces allow quick reconfiguration between military and humanitarian roles. These advantages accumulate over time, improving effectiveness and reducing operational friction. Few roles highlight the importance of sealift capability more clearly than disaster response. Typhoons regularly isolate entire provinces. Ports are damaged, roads are washed out. Air transport alone is rarely sufficient. In these situations, naval landing craft become lifelines. They deliver heavy equipment for clearing debris, transport relief supplies in bulk, and provide medical support platforms offshore. The Philippine Navy's experience in these missions has shaped the requirements for its new landing craft. The vessel is envisioned not only as a transporter, but as an enabler, capable of supporting extended relief operations in austere environments. This dual-use role strengthens public support for naval modernization. When citizens see defense assets saving lives and restoring access after disasters, the value of investment becomes tangible. Local shipbuilding reinforces this connection. It demonstrates that defense spending is not only about security, but also about national resilience. Perhaps the most critical factor in sustaining local naval innovation is continuity. One successful project is not enough. Skills must be retained, lessons must be documented, institutions must be allowed to mature. The landing craft project provides a foundation for this process. Engineers who work on the design gain experience that can be applied to future vessels. Shipyard personnel refine construction technique. Program managers develop better planning and oversight practices. To preserve these gains, follow-on projects are essential. Even modest upgrades or additional units help maintain momentum and prevent skill atrophy. This is where long-term planning matters. Defense modernization must be treated as a pipeline, not a one-time effort. Each project should build on the last, gradually increasing complexity and ambition. While the progress represented by the landing craft is significant, realism remains important. Not every system can or should be built domestically. Certain technologies will continue to require foreign partnerships. The strength of a self-reliant defense posture lies in knowing where domestic capability adds the most value and where strategic cooperation makes sense. For naval forces, hull design, construction, and basic systems integration are logical areas for domestic development. Advanced sensors, weapons, and specialized electronics may still be sourced externally, but integrated locally. This balanced approach reduces risk while maximizing national benefit. It also ensures interoperability with allies while preserving operational autonomy. How should success be measured? Not simply by the number of ships built, but by their availability, reliability, and relevance. A locally built vessel that spends more time at sea, costs less to maintain, and performs its missions effectively is a success, even if it is less complex than foreign alternatives. Success is also measured by people, by the number of engineers trained, technicians retained, and institutions strengthened, by the confidence gained through experience. Over time, these intangible assets become as important as the ships themselves. The development of a new landing craft is a modest step in material terms, but a powerful one in symbolic and strategic terms. It signals a shift in how the Philippines approaches defense, from dependence to capability, from acquisition to sustainability, from short-term solutions to long-term vision. For the Sealift Amphibious Force, it promises vessels that are better suited to their missions and easier to support. For the Navy, it strengthens readiness and resilience. For the nation, it reinforces sovereignty and self-confidence. As the landing craft project moves forward, it raises an important question, one that will define Philippine defense for years to come. Can the Philippines sustain this momentum? Can it turn a milestone into a tradition? Can local naval innovation become not the exception, but the norm? The answer will depend on policy consistency, institutional commitment, and the willingness to invest not just in ships, but in people and processes. What is clear is this: the path toward a self-reliant defense posture has already begun. The new landing craft being developed at the naval shipyard is more than steel and machinery. It is a statement of intent, a declaration that the Philippines is ready to take greater responsibility for its own security, at sea, in times of crisis, and into the future. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth coverage of Philippine defense modernization. Thank you for watching. See you in the next documentary.